Welcome to Football Game Plan's FCS Kickoff presented by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and on today's episode, we will be unveiling our 2016 preseason FCS All-American team. But first, be sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts, and if you miss any of our episodes, you can find them archived on the website www.footballgameplan.com/FCS Kickoff. Be sure to listen to the FCS Opening Drive radio show, which will debut Friday, June 17th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time with myself and host Luke Diamond as we bring you all of the news, notes, and tidbits from around the FCS. It'll be a live call-in show, and you can get that information on your screen on where you can listen and how you can participate. The FCS Opening Drive will feature player and coach interviews, our own FCS Kickoff correspondence, game previews, and much more. So without further ado, let's unveil our Football Game Plan 2016 preseason FCS All-American team by starting on the offensive side of the football with the quarterback position. Northern Arizona's Case Cookus headlines this group as a first-team All-American. The 6'4", 200-pound true sophomore out of Thousand Oaks, California, started his Lumberjack career off with an outstanding effort on the road in a win versus Stephen F. Austin and just got better each and every week. So much better that offensive coordinator Tim Plow started to trust him more with the ball in his hands more and more as the season progressed. Now, Cookus finished 2015 as the National Freshman of the Year after tossing 37 touchdowns to only 5 interceptions and passing for over 3,100 yards, completing 69% of his passes. Our second and third team All-Americans are two excellent players that are coming off big seasons. Eli Jenkins out of Jacksonville State was the catalyst to the Gamecocks' run to Frisco, Texas last year. The 6'2", 200-pound senior signal caller grew as a passer last season, completing 60% of his passes while tossing 21 touchdowns. And what makes him so dangerous is that he can kill you with his legs as well. Jenkins rushed for over 1,100 yards last year, as well as 15 rushing touchdowns. Peter Puyalls out of Holy Cross, in my opinion, is one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the FCS after struggling the first 3 games of 2015. In addition to struggling in 2014, the light came on versus Albany and carried on throughout the rest of the season as Puyalls' play had the Crusaders on the brink of the FCS playoffs. Last year, the Glenville, Illinois native turned in his best season yet, throwing for nearly 3,200 yards and 28 touchdowns to only 11 interceptions. Puyalls put on a passing clinic versus Lafayette last year, going 27-36 for 358 yards and 6 touchdowns. As a former running back, I tend to pay a little bit extra attention to what I like to think is the best position on the field. Now, the FCS is filled with tremendously skilled runners across the country, but I had to whittle down this list to only 6. And here are those 6 that we will call All-Americans. Any FCS running back list has to start with Fordham's Chase Edmonds. The 2-time All-American has rushed for over 3,400 yards in his career and 43 touchdowns. Last season, the 5'9", 195-pound junior ran for 126 yards in an upset victory over FBS Army. Obviously, he's no stranger to big games as he ran for a whopping 347 yards at 11.2 yards a carry and 3 touchdowns versus Lehigh. Edmonds has a chance to capture the Walter Payton Award this year, which is given to the top player in the FCS. Cade Harrington out of Lamar was the FCS leading rusher last year with over 2,000 yards on the ground at an impressive 7.9 yards a carry and 21 rushing touchdowns. Harrington was a big play waiting to happen for the Cardinals as he put together 5 200-yard games and one 347-yard effort versus Abilene Christian. The nation got to see in the inaugural Celebration Bowl what many across the HBCU and FCS landscape already knew. North Carolina A&T's Tariq Cohen is a special player. In that bowl game versus Alcorn State, Cohen carried the ball 22 times for 295 yards and 3 touchdowns, averaging a mind-blowing 13.4 yards a carry. You have to remember, size is not a skill, so don't think just because he's 5 feet 6 inches tall that he can't carry the load. Cohen has logged over 650 carries in his career and has rushed for over 4,000 yards. If Cohen has another year like last season, he has a chance to finish his career 4th all-time on the FCS career rushing list. We can't forget about the fullbacks paving the way, and the Citadel's Tyler Renew is our first-team All-American. The 5'11", 217-pound senior plays a pivotal role in the Bulldogs' option attack, as he was a big reason why the Citadel was able to pull off the shocking upset of the SEC's South Carolina Gamecocks late last season. Renew rushed for 176 yards and 2 touchdowns, averaging 7.6 yards a carry. Cal Poly's Joe Prothero is another option fullback that wears down opponents with each and every carry. Look for him to easily top 1,000 yards this season. And Illinois State's Brady Tibbetts is more of your traditional fullback that helped pave the way for Marshawn Colbridge's, who's now with the New York Giants, 1,900-yard season. We'll be back after this. Don't forget to check out and grab your copy of our 2 newly released books, Football: A Love Story and What Did Football Teach Me? These books feature over 100 stories from current and former coaches, players, executives, and entertainers from across the football landscape, describing what got them involved in the game, what they love about it, and what life lessons the game taught them. You can find your copy or order your copy from our website at footballgameplan.com/books.
Well, I think the FCS is really, when you look at it, it's the perfect model for football. Okay, in that as a coach, number one, you deal with Division I, it's great. You deal with a high level of athlete. In our case, you deal with a high level of student. It's extremely competitive football. It's a great environment, but it's also doesn't have some of the trappings that the bigger levels have as far as the business and the money of things. But it's pure football. And as a coach, that's what I like is it's about the football. And I think the way we determine our champion is the best playoff system in all of sports. And I think that you can never argue with who the national champion is at the FCS level. And it's just top to bottom the most competitive bracket of playoff sports there is in any of the sports. So if you like the action, I think the quality of play is extremely high. I think the quality of person is extremely high. I think there's some great coaches at our level, and it's attainable to fans too. It's also you come to an FCS game, you have a little bit more of a close experience to the players. And in our case, the players meet the people in the town. It's right there. They're not kind of like these pros in waiting. You can reach out, you can touch them, you can meet the coaches, you can do that stuff. It's just enjoyable football at a real high level still.
New York City is the largest market for broadcast media. It's the epicenter for the TV and radio industry. If you ever had a dream of working in the thrilling broadcast world, then make it a reality by going to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. CSB has helped numerous people get a job with hands-on training and a learn-by-doing mentality. You will learn all of the high-tech equipment in the TV and radio studios. From hosting your own radio show, to being a news or sports anchor, operating a camera in the TV studio, or editing audio and video, the choice is yours. Graduates from CSB have gone on to work at some of the major companies in the industry. To get more information, call 1-800-TV-RADIO or check us out at gocsb.com. Your road to success starts here at the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
I think 2016 will be the year of the wide receiver in the FCS, and there are some outstanding players on the flanks this season. The 6 players on our All-American team all share one common trait: a knack for the big play. Cooper Kupp out of Eastern Washington has a chance to lead Cheney as the most prolific receiver in FCS history. If Kupp just has another season like 2015, he will be the FCS all-time leader in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. At 6'1", 195, Kupp can excel at any one of the three receiver positions and is also a threat to score from anywhere on the field. Jake Wieneke from South Dakota State is as consistent as they come. The 6'4", 210-pound junior has posted back-to-back 1,400-yard seasons for the Jackrabbits. Last year in the opener versus Kansas, Wieneke hauled in 8 passes for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. What's so impressive about his game and his situation is that teams come in knowing he's the number 1 option and in some respects the number 2 option, yet he still is able to produce at a high level. Second-team All-American Anthony Warren out of Illinois State averaged an eye-popping 22 yards per catch. Seldom used his first 2 seasons for the Redbirds, Warren broke out last year going over 100 yards in 6 games. Versus South Dakota State, Warren torched the Jackrabbits defense for 241 yards and 3 touchdowns, averaging 30 yards a catch in the process. You can argue that Justin Watson out of Penn could have been second-team All-American, but nevertheless, he's on our squad as the 6'3", 210-pound junior tore through the Ivy League last season to the tune of 74 receptions and over 1,000 yards. Watson, a former high school track star, is extremely explosive after the catch. Now, versus Harvard, he caught 7 passes for 149 yards with a 21.9 yards per catch average while also rushing for 100 yards. The future is not only bright for the Penn Quakers, but for Watson personally, as he should once again put together another strong season. New Hampshire's Jordan Powell had a breakout junior campaign, catching 46 passes for 461 yards, and Powell's your quintessential matchup nightmare because he's able to flex out wide to be a bigger wide receiver in addition to having success as a seal or wham blocker on run plays. Now, his emergence last year will only bode well for the entire Wildcats offense in 2016. Derek Griffin also plays basketball for Texas Southern, but his football exploits obviously is what lands him on his list as our second-team All-American tight end. Griffin averaged 19.7 yards a catch last year and scored 11 touchdowns. He's a gifted athlete that'll garner a ton of attention from NFL scouts if he keeps on this trajectory. And rounding out the tight end All-Americans is Dallas Goddard of South Dakota State, who joins his passing game teammate Jake Wieneke as the only Jackrabbits on this All-American team. Goddard is more balanced in his approach, being able to block inline while also being a threat over the middle of the field, and he maximized his opportunities last season with 484 yards receiving on just 26 receptions. We'll be back with more of our 2016 preseason FCS All-Americans after this commercial break.
The FCS, in my mind, is the greatest level of football in the country. It doesn't necessarily always have the resources, the glitz, the glamour of the FBS level, but the FCS is a level that I think plays outstanding football. It's extremely competitive. It plays to a national champion at the end in a tournament format, and I think the experience of aiming for that championship is something that you can't get on any other level.
School of Broadcasting can help you reach the next level in the amazing world of broadcast and entertainment media.
I've mentored several interns here at the Covino and Rich Show at SiriusXM, and the ones from CSB always stand out to me. They have a knowledge of the equipment, knowledge of editing, what it's like to be in a studio, and that always eliminates a huge learning curve.
Their professional studios give students a hands-on, learn-by-doing approach using equipment used in actual radio stations and TV studios. Visit our website at gocsb.com or call 1-800-TV-RADIO. Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Start today.
Welcome back to the FCS Kickoff presented by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook. And now we move on to the big guys up front, the guys who make it possible for the rest of the offense to function, the guys whose name you won't see in the paper or on highlight packages. I'm talking about the offensive line, and here are the finest 15 in the country that have made our preseason All-American team. There's no shortage of talent here on our list, guys that are not only really good collegiate players, but guys that also have pro-level talent. Corey Levin out of Chattanooga is extremely versatile as he can play multiple spots up front. Levin has played left tackle, left guard, and also center. He's a two-time consensus All-American and a three-time All-Southern Conference performer as well, and is also a two-time Jacobs Blocking Award recipient, which is given to the top offensive lineman in the conference. Julian Davenport out of Bucknell is an outstanding left tackle at 6'6", 320. Davenport not only has great length, but knows how to use it. He executes all blocks flawlessly and has great footwork and athleticism to get to the second level with ease. First it was Billy Turner, then Joe Haig, and now Zach Johnson looks to be the next big-time offensive lineman to come out of the North Dakota State Bison football program. Johnson's ability to consistently move defensive linemen off the spot is what lands him on our All-American squad. He was able to bounce back from a 2014 injury to put together an all-conference 2015 season. Jacksonville State center Casey Dunn is a big part of their offensive attack. As prolific as the Gamecocks were last year offensively, nothing happens if Dunn isn't dominant up front. From making line calls to excelling in the running game and also in pass protection, Dunn is arguably one of the best offensive linemen in program history. And rounding out our first team All-Americans is Mitch Kirsch of James Madison. And Kirsch is similar to Bucknell's Julian Davenport in the sense that he's a big guy that has tremendous footwork and athleticism. He's a devastating run blocker that's a two-time All-Colonial Athletic Association performer and a second-team All-American. Kirsch has been a starter since his sophomore season and is a model of consistency. Our second and third team preseason All-Americans are also just as strong as their first team mates. Marcus Cook of Jackson State has done a sensational job at center for the Tigers. The 6'3", 310-pound senior, like Casey Dunn of Jacksonville State, plays an integral role for Jackson State's offensive attack, a big-time mauler in the middle. Zach Duffy out of Lehigh is an excellent right tackle that has really good patience in pass protection and does a great job of keeping front side pressure out of the face of the quarterback. Duffy has gotten better each season he's been the starter, earning second-team All-Patriot League last year for the Mountain Hawks. Moving over to the guys that can do it all, the all-purpose players. The old saying goes, the more you can do, the better your chances are to stick. Well, these guys have done more than enough to stick on our All-American team. John Santiago out of North Dakota, as a freshman, put together an impressive season. Santiago was a starting tailback, going over 1,400 yards on the ground, averaging 6.5 yards a carry and 16 rushing touchdowns. He also returned 21 kickoffs for 581 yards, averaging 27.7 yards a return. When North Dakota needed a big play, Santiago delivered in more ways than one. I got the chance to see Harold Cooper out of Rhode Island live last year versus Brown in the Governor's Cup, and he stole the show. Cooper rushed for over 100 yards that day and also ran a kickoff back for a touchdown, weaving his way through the Brown Bears kickoff coverage units. Cooper filled up the stat sheet throughout the season, finishing with 748 yards rushing, 267 yards receiving, and 569 yards on kickoff returns.
It's different, you know. It's I think it's a little bit smaller, obviously, than the FBS. I mean, you're going to get more attention to detail. I mean, you could go to a bigger school, you know, Ohio State, Florida State, USC, and you could be one of those, you know, 90 players that they have on scholarship, but you know, how much are you going to play? You know, how much attention to detail? You know, are you going to be able to graduate in 4 years? Those are things. Obviously, I didn't work at one of those schools, but those are some of the questions you got to ask yourself before you step foot on a campus or make decisions. You come to the FCS, and I think, number one, if you're that good, you're going to play. And they're going to find kids. I mean, you look at the second pick in the NFL draft this year, the quarterback from North Dakota State, and you go look at any one of those kids. I think any one of those kids could play at an FBS school. and they just happen to be in an FCS school who is getting looked at. They just won another national title. It is great football at this level. Maybe not as good as the Pac-10 or the Big 12 or the Big 10, one of those type of schools, but it is still outstanding college football where kids are getting recognized. They're still getting drafted in the NFL. They're going to graduate probably in 4 years, maybe not at a big, huge institution. And the biggest thing is I think that you'll get a chance for some more exposure being on the field and playing. The bigger schools, you got to look at, are you going to play and how soon? Or do you go to an FCS school and maybe you start for 4 years, you become an All-American and you get your chance, other than maybe playing 1 or 2 years at an BS school. But I think the FCS has done a great job promoting its football the last 3 years. Nowadays with the social media and everything that goes on, it's taken off. And again, there's a lot of schools in our level right now, like North Dakota State. I bet you any one of those kids would be playing at a bigger school if they wanted to be, but they chose North Dakota State for a reason, and it was the right fit, and they got exposure, and they just won how many national championships, and the quarterback was the second pick in the NFL draft this year. So there is a chance. I don't think you have to go to a Division 1A school or an FCS school just to make it to the NFL. The FCS has a lot of great teams and a lot of great players, and those kids do get looked at, and maybe they play, like we said, instead of 1 year or 2 years at the FCS level, they're starting for all 4 years at the FBS level. You look at some of the schools in the Northeast this year, Harvard, Dartmouth, Villanova, New Hampshire. I mean, all those schools have been in Fordham. I mean, they've all been in the playoffs, and they've all had kids that got drafted or have played. They've had a successful, New Hampshire's been in the playoffs, I think, 11 years in a row or 12 years in a row, and Villanova, same thing. I mean, those are great schools academically. Those kids graduate in 4 years, and they played for 4 years and made a name for themselves and got themselves in position. So I think the FCS is doing a great job of what they're doing in terms of promoting our level of football, and I just hope it continues that way. And I think when kids step on some of those campuses and see what's in front of them, that they're a little shocked, and they can be very happy at a school like that as well.
In this day and age of college football, or football in general, it's about getting to the quarterback and disrupting the pocket. Now, I know I'm a bit biased, but I think we've put together 12 guys on our first, second, and third team All-American list that can do just that. Keonta Davis out of Chattanooga is a homegrown product that attended Red Bank High School in Chattanooga and has put together an impressive career for the Mocs. The three-time All-Southern Conference performer finished 2015 with 13.5 sacks and 17 TFLs. At 6'4", 260, Davis is able to bend the edge and shows great closing speed to the quarterback. He leads an extremely talented Mocs defensive line that'll play a huge role in the team's success this year. New defensive line coach Carrie Bailey is a highly respected coach and former All-SEC performer at defensive tackle, so you can expect to see even greater production in 2016 from Davis. I'm a big fan of Carter Schultz of Northern Iowa, who became a full-time starter last year for the Panthers and definitely maximized his opportunities by making first-team All-Missouri Valley Football Conference, as well as becoming a consensus All-American. Schultz set the UNI record for TFLs in the season with 23, while also leading the team in sacks with 15. The 6'2", 265-pound senior also gets done in the classroom, as he was named to the academic All-American team in 2015 as well. Sam Houston State's P.J. Hall has been a star since he stepped foot on campus in Huntsville, Texas. The two-time All-American and two-time All-Southland Conference performer is coming off an 11-sack season where he also racked up 22 TFLs and 50 solo stops. Hall is an excellent defensive lineman that gets it done on special teams as well, as he's blocked 5 kicks in his career and is also already second all-time in program history with 23 sacks, while being first all-time in TFLs with 52. If history is of any indication, Hall should once again dominate along the line of scrimmage. Youngstown State's Derek Rivers was a third-team All-American last year and is a two-time first-team All-Missouri Valley Football Conference player. The 6'3", 245-pound defensive end should continue to blossom in 2016. Rivers finished last year with 15.5 TFLs and 9 sacks. living behind the line of scrimmage isn't the only thing the versatile senior is capable of, as Rivers also started 2 games at outside linebacker and finished the season with 52 total tackles. 37 of them were solo stops. With his ability to play both with his hand in the dirt and also off the ground, there's no surprise that NFL scouts have been highly interested in the Penguins' defensive end. Looking at the rest of our All-American defensive linemen, and there's a bevy of NFL-type talent remaining, Maine's defensive lineman Patrick Ricard has added weight but still maintains the same burst and quickness off the ball that led him to have 16.5 TFLs last season for the Black Bears. Colgate's Pat Afriyie has a non-stop motor. I was on the broadcast last year for Colgate Georgetown, and Afriyie was a disruptive presence throughout the day. Aaron Thompson is another strong defensive line product coming out of what can now be called Defensive Line University, Stony Brook. And I would also keep an eye on Abdullah Anderson out of Bucknell. He's gotten significantly better each and every season. He's 6'4", 295, and has a variety of ways of getting to the quarterback. Anderson is a 2-time All-Patriot League performer that has already piqued the interest of NFL scouts because of his talent and immense potential. We'll be back with more of our 2016 preseason FCS All-American team after this commercial break.
Well, for me, I think, it kind of keeps the big picture in context. So if you're looking, especially in our league, where you're looking at student athletes being reflective of the student body and the mission of the institution, I think our league does that great. And just as importantly, there's some premier players, premier programs. It's an exciting level. It's traditionally very wide open, unpredictable. It's certainly not stale. It's on the cutting edge of an awful lot of things. And I just think it's a very entertaining level of football that is played by some very, very talented student athletes that have just kind of chosen a little bit different path as they try to balance their professional career in addition to their football future. And I can't speak for everybody, but an awful lot of our players have aspirations of playing on Sunday, but want a really good backup plan in case that doesn't work in the workforce. And so it's really it's reflective of everything that you want, of really good football, cutting edge offense and defense, unpredictability, people that are reflective of student bodies, and I think it's probably at its zenith of popularity and talent.
New York City, the media capital of the world. But in America, there is a world of media at our fingertips, from coast to coast. The broadcast media industry connects us in so many ways and remains on the cutting edge of providing us news and entertainment. Have you ever pictured yourself working in the media? Did you ever dream of working in TV or on the radio? Make your dreams come true today. Connecticut School of Broadcasting is the oldest and largest group of communication schools in the country. At Connecticut School of Broadcasting, you'll learn by doing with hands-on training straight from professional broadcasters. There is job placement assistance for graduates, day and evening courses available. Graduate and get into the job market in only 8 or 16 weeks. Don't waste another second daydreaming about what you want to do with your life. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO and start living your dream today.
And welcome back to Football Game Plan's FCS Kickoff, presented by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and we are rolling out our 2016 preseason FCS All-American team, and we're at the second level of the defense now, the linebackers. And when you check out this group, you'll see 12 guys that are able to get sideline to sideline within the blink of an eye. Javancy Jones of Jackson State leads off our first-team All-Americans, and Jones has also played defensive end for the Tigers, so he shows that versatility that scouts look for at the next level. Jones had 107 total tackles last year, 37 solo stops, with 7.5 sacks and 25.5 TFL. So whether if it's as a defensive end or as an outside linebacker, Jones definitely makes his presence felt. Christian Kuntz out of Duquesne was nothing short of sensational last season, finishing the year with 42 solo stops, 10 sacks, and 26 TFLs. Kuntz is a two-time All-American performer and was voted the Northeast Conference Defensive Player of the Year. Kuntz does a great job in every facet of defensive play, stopping the run, getting after the quarterback, and being an asset in pass coverage. Speaking of being an asset in pass coverage, Nick DeLuca out of North Dakota State picked off 2 passes last season and broke up 8 en route to being named first team All-Missouri Valley Football Conference. And DeLuca is your quintessential sideline-to-sideline backer as he's consistently in passing lanes, making plays at or behind the line of scrimmage, which is evident by his 10 TFLs and 3 sacks last season. And he's also always around the ball, considering he was in on 135 tackles in 2015. DeLuca built on a steady sophomore season last year and should once again do the same as a senior. James Madison's Andrew Ankra earned second-team All-American honors, and he's coming off a redshirt sophomore season that saw him accumulate 56 tackles, 11 TFLs, and 5 forced fumbles. His ability to come off the edge makes it tough for opposing offenses to get their timing going, as he's a guy that constantly alters the timing or disrupts the play. Both James Rentz out of Sacred Heart and Victor Egu out of Yale are 2 of the more underrated linebackers in the FCS. Now, Egu can play inside or outside backer and is equally as effective, while Rentz was named first team All-Northeast Conference last year as he led Sacred Heart in TFLs with 13 and sacks with 5.5. Rentz has tremendous playing speed, which helps him be a constant disruptive nuisance to opposing offenses. The old football adage goes, the front end helps out the back end, and only in this particular case, it may not be necessarily true, because each and every one of the defensive backs that are on our list, whether it's a cornerback or a safety, can more than hold their own with or without help. So without further ado, here are our defensive back preseason FCS All-Americans. D. Delaney out of the Citadel was a consensus All-American last year after recording 46 tackles, 5 interceptions, and 8 pass breakups. Delaney is already tied for 9th on the Citadel all-time interception list with 7, and at 6'1", 191, the junior corner has a chance to build on an already stellar collegiate career. Casey DeAndre out of New Hampshire has been a regular on many postseason academic All-American and consensus All-Conference and All-American teams. The senior Wildcat finished 2015 with 76 tackles, 55 solo stops, and 12 pass breakups. Those 12 breakups gives him an eye-popping 49 for his career. DeAndre definitely has the ability to play on Sundays. The Spiders of Richmond made a deep run in last year's FCS playoffs, partly due to the outstanding play of defensive back David Jones. And Jones led the team with 9 interceptions and can match up anywhere in the secondary. His ability to close on the football and also come away with it makes it tough to throw the football against Richmond. Look for Jones to once again be utilized all over the secondary in 2016. Another mainstay on many All-American squads throughout his career has been Donald Payne out of Stetson. Some call him the FCS version of Troy Polamalu, as he's consistently around the football. Payne led the Hatters in tackles last year with 126, 96 of which were solo stops, and also led in TFLs with 16. Payne, to me, plays a lot like current New York Giants safety Landon Collins in the sense that you can trust him in coverage, back deep, and also close to the line of scrimmage. There's some big-time talent as you take a look at our second and third team All-Americans. Marquise Green out of Mississippi Valley State burst onto the scene last year as a freshman, picking off 7 passes, which led the team. Green also showed no fear as he racked up 34 solo tackles, giving the Delta Devils hope on that side of the football for this upcoming season. Javon Elmore out of Central Connecticut State has been a very active player for the Blue Devils. He plays the ball extremely well and finished 2015 with 16 pass breakups and 2 interceptions. He's another player that should push for consensus All-American honors this upcoming season. Cornerback Taylor Reynolds out of James Madison has excellent instincts and ball skills, and Reynolds was a first-team All-CAA performer after picking off 3 balls and breaking up 16 passes last season. Reynolds also was able to return a fumble 77 yards for a touchdown versus Villanova.
The unique thing about the FCS is if it puts you in a position where if you win, you can keep playing. That it's competitive. It is Division I football, and it's also been able to cross conferences. I think within our league, we play alongside the Ivy League, alongside the CAA, alongside the NEC, and it really gives you an opportunity each and every Saturday to prove yourself. The other thing is that these schools within this league are putting people out that are student athletes, that they'll achieve one of the better educations in the country, biased here at Bucknell. But we're also in a position where we can participate and play against some of the FBS schools. Last year we played against Army, and a couple years we played against Temple. To be able to judge yourself in terms of what you've done with your program, what you've done with your team against those teams that are, you know, the more preeminent teams in the country. And that I think we all have to realize that a football field, when it comes down to it, it's 53.3 yards wide and 120 yards long. Regardless of where you're playing, that's the field. And that's what's exciting about college football, that you when you get out there on a Saturday, and I keep telling my team, and I've always said this to my teams, there might be yelling, all right, regardless of who they're yelling for, make sure that you know they're yelling for you.
It's the ever important third facet of a football game, the special teams. And many people don't know how important these units and players are until they either need one or something bad happens. Well, not here at the FCS Kickoff, as we understand the value of these guys that can change the game in an instant. So here are our 2016 preseason FCS All-American kickers, punters, and returners. Kicker Lance GC out of St. Francis was sensational last season, connecting on 16 of 17 of his field goal attempts with a long of 46 yards and also 28 of 29 on his extra points. He was also connecting in the classroom, making academic All-American honors as well. Another red flash finds his way on our All-American list. Kickoff returner Lorenzo Jerome was not only stellar in the secondary, but also as a returnman. A 2015 All-American, Jerome averaged 31 yards per kickoff return, bringing 2 back for touchdowns. Look for the red flash to find more ways to get the ball in his hands this season. Moving over to the punt returners on our All-American team, and Chris Garden out of North Carolina A&T makes it as our first team punt returner. Garden lit up the Celebration Bowl last year with a 74-yard punt return for a touchdown, which set an NCAA FCS record for punt return yards in a single season. He only needed 1 yard to break the record, and Garden added 73 extra ones onto that record as icing on the cake. So that's it for our 2016 preseason FCS All-American team. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts as you see here on the screen, and hit me up on Twitter at FBallGameplan. And once again, don't forget to tune in Friday, June 17th for the debut of Football Game Plan's FCS Opening Drive, presented by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Wrap up.